know him as like an internet nerd. He's our webmaster.
Yeah.
That's what I know him as. And so I'm like very happy to hear what is there about Lee. Let's hear that.
Hi, my name's Lee. I'm not calling.
Hi, Lee.
I'm kind of nerdy and pretty introverty, so I hope I don't bore everybody to death. Um, uh, I kind of have a boring story. I didn't drink in high school or growing up. I had a pretty normal family, the first time, I had a I had. I didn't have the greatest high school experience because I was kind of socially awkward. And that sort of changed our last day of school when I was a senior in high school. Just before the weekend of graduation, I decided to go to a party with a bunch of people. And I had a few beers out there that night. And my world just sort of changed, one night. And I could talk to people that I had never could talk to before. And I became a little more popular in one night than I'd ever been, ever combined, all of that. And so um, um, I decided that I had found, my solution to talking to people. And so I went to college and I became a very, very good drinker, not with scotch, but with a lot of beer for a long, long time, I never even touched hard alcohol. I had a grandfather who died of, let's face it, he died of drinking gin. What it said on the death certificate doesn't matter. But so I've never had a sip of gin in my life. I thought if I could just stay away from that, I could probably drink a whole bunch of beer because, you can only drink so much beer, right? But I went to college and got through that and after college I had a job in sales because I needed to force myself to talk to people, and so that was my excuse to be able to do that. And on the side, I became a bartender. I bartended at corporate restaurants, and I had a job, at probably the number one nightclub in downtown Seattle in the late '80s, down by the Kingdom, and I was a bartender there, and I was a very good, successful bartender there. And I got married and had a couple kids, um, and then things started getting worse. I had jobs that were in advertising and media, and those jobs required drinking. They just did at that time. The stories of Mad Men are real, and if you didn't drink, you kind of didn't last very long in some of these things, but I drank a lot, and this having to be at work like this made it so that you didn't wait till 5 o'clock and leave and then go to a bar. I mean, the bar was there. Right. So then it became earlier and earlier, and then lunches, and then evenings became, when I started working on my own, evenings became mornings. And, I would wake up, the years just go by, the kids are growing up, and I'm getting drunk earlier and earlier, mostly to power through my days. Probably not the wisest idea, because it got me into a lot of trouble. I don't have any DUIs. I never went to jail. I don't think I killed anybody. Um, but I hurt some people along the way, and I certainly hurt me. I couldn't help people as much as I used to because if you start, even if it's light beer, if you start drinking early in the morning, you've only got so many hours worth of work before you get really tired and need a long nap, and then wake up and I start over. So I had like 2 half days where I got to the point where I would drink, I'd wake up from a nap and drink, the the last 9 beers out of an 18 pack and go get another 18 pack, and then I'd have 9 beers when I woke up, kind of thing. And an 18 pack a day is a lot of beer. Um, um, I was never a Scotch drinker, but after a while, I ended up drinking a lot of Canadian whiskey, and that didn't exactly help. So, um, I lost a lot of people around me. People just didn't want to be around me anymore. I've been told I'm a happy drunk, but God, when I sober up, I'm just grumpy and grouchy, and I'd throw things, and people were afraid of me, and that's kind of not how I want it to be. So I have a big book I carry with me, a very, very expensive big book from a local recovery center that you've all heard of, and so in it has 2 dates in it. It has date number 1 that's crossed out, and date number 2 that's still there. And date number 1 was in 2012, and my wife had enough, and she kept telling me, you need to stop drinking, or I'm going to leave. And I didn't want to hurt my kids, but at the same time, she'd get done telling me that, and I'm like, I have no idea how to stop drinking right now. I have no clue. And then, you go through all the willpower parts, right? Okay, so today's the day I'm not going to drink. And then, 3 hours later, you're drinking again. You can't quite figure out why. I've heard that so many times, and I've experienced that myself. But I thought I was, okay, I was getting things done and being good enough. But, she'd catch me kind of napping in the afternoon, and stuff around the house wasn't done. And, I'd leave unfinished laundry around. She's like, I didn't know I had to fold clothes tonight, and that kind of thing. And so, I never missed a soccer game or even a soccer practice with the kids, but, I missed a lot of other things. And so, one day she says, we're going to do something about this. And so, a couple of days later, I'm in IOP at a recovery center. And I was angry that, I had put myself into this position that I'd been caught, right? My first step, I rewrote the first step. My first step is I got caught, right? and so it's like, we're not going to repeat that again. And so my light beers, I was probably sober a couple of months, and I got angrier and angrier with the recovery center because they kept trying to push AA on me. And it was like, am I here for a reason, or are you just pawning me off onto the free service and then taking the insurance money and sort of running with it? And then the thing that really tripped me up is they said, well, you're not quite sober enough. I think you need 1 more week. And I'm like, I think you've been talking to the insurance company and you think you can get 1 more week out of me. But when I went to the phase 2 part, I realized that I could drink between leaving IOP, the second phase 2, on Thursday night. And if I stopped drinking Saturday night at midnight, I could pass a UA if I had to take one the next Tuesday, right? 90 some odd hours, and I would be fine. And so I planned my relapse, and whether we want to get into the semantics, whether I relapsed or not, or never got sober in the first place, that's fine. Um, but I know that I started drinking again after being sober for a while, and it took me no time at all to get exactly where I was. And I switched from light beer to, um, those 22-ounce cans of malt liquor, because, that have about 5 light beers in each one of those, and I get 3 or 4 of those. And because I could hide the cans, I wasn't in a position where my girls would kind of come through my house and kind of ravage through everything. Hey, look, I found the bottle Dad's drinking out of, right? And so that's, uh, yeah. So I got worse and worse, and my family was more and more disappointed with me. So my sobriety date is um, September 23rd of 2014. So I have 9 years now, and I'll have 10 this year coming up. That was a Monday, and I had decided over the weekend that I was going to get sober, because the Friday before that, my wife had just had enough and came home in the middle of the day and said, I filed for divorce today. I'm like, you filed? Yes, I filed. Here's my attorney's card. I'd appreciate it if you weren't here when I got back home from work, and left. And so I, out of respect, I left. I packed some stuff, and I had the humiliation of moving home when I was 48 years old. Sorry. And so that was a kind of a traumatic experience. I grew up in a town that had about 700 people in it. I may have been the only town south of here, down toward Mount St. Helens, and I may have been the only person that ever got sober in that town, because there was sure a ton of drinking when I was growing up. And I had a contentious relationship with me in that town, and I got nervous going there because my high school experience wasn't exactly the greatest thing in the world. And so, a lot of times I'd get, drunk just to go down there, and I wouldn't be the driver, of course. I drank and drove plenty of times after work and after all kinds of things, but on our family trips, I didn't. But I would go down there and I'd just be drunk for family things, and for a long time, I just wasn't the model son and husband or even parent. I didn't see it, of course. You don't get that kind of perspective until you look at it later. But I don't think in my world I had the devastating consequences that you've probably grown to expect out of stories like this. Mine's just kind of boring. I got thrown out of the house and I had to move home, at the age of 48. And everything sort of changed on that weekend. I had decided over the weekend I couldn't hide the cans down there at all like I could hide them at my house. And I'm kind of explaining things to my mom, and she's like, well, you're going to think you're going to drink like that around here, I'm going to throw you out too. And so I decided over the weekend that I was going to jump back into AA with both feet, do what it took. Just do it, there were a couple of beers left in the fridge. I had a couple of beers with my dad on that Monday. And then I told him I was going to quit drinking. I'm done with this. I just need you to understand why. He's like, okay, cool. I don't think he's ever really had a problem drinking, but my mom has a problem when he, has more than one or two beers. He gets a little loopy and that there may have been some problems growing up that I didn't see all of it, but he wasn't a huge what I would consider even an alcoholic, because he can stop anytime he wants to, and even today he has one once in a while, and so I don't I don't necessarily see that as a problem when I was growing up, but got done with those beers. And even to this day, I opened up a can of Monster energy drink, and I ripped off the tab. It's still on my keychain from 10 years ago as a kind of a reminder to me about when I started all of this. And I decided I was going to do whatever it took. So I found another recovery center that you've probably all heard of, that's now been bought by someone else, by the state, and it's changed names. But at one time, Cascade was attached to the hospital in Burien, Highline. And so I went in there and met a guy and failed my alcohol test like we're all supposed to fail. And I failed very, very well. He says, "You are more than qualified." And he says, "How many beers do you have a day?" And I go, 4 or 5. And he's like, "Yeah, what kind of beer?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, the Steel Reserve, 22 ounces." And he's like, "Do you know how many beers are in one of those?" And we see him doing math with me and stuff. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm pretty bad. I get it. And so, but it ended up being, it's one of those things that for me, the stopping of the drinking wasn't hard. I had just gone through a very traumatic weekend where I lost, everything in my life, I thought. And, I needed to stop. I had just got hit on the head with a 2x4, and that was just my moment saying, I need to change. I need to go do something else. And so I did what, I don't know if you're supposed to do this. I kind of did all the steps in all the wrong order real quick. I tried to make amends right away. And I told everybody on earth. There was no anonymous in what I was doing. I called all my clients. I called everybody. Like, I'm going to not do anything for a while because I'm going to go check into this. Right. And I actually went and saw one of my clients, and she asked me, "Are you working with them?" I'm like, "No, I'm the first time I went through this, I didn't have a sponsor, right? I didn't think I needed to participate in any of this." So I would go to meetings at the IHOP in the morning in Renton, at the Tukwila Early Birds, and I'd hear the same old stuff, and I would do it to get the court slip signed up, right? But I didn't have a sponsor, and so she asked me if I was working with someone, and I said no. And she wrote down this guy's name on a card, who's sat in the room today, and he's been my sponsor ever since. And that kind of just, that moment just kind of stunned me that okay, maybe I'm actually doing this now. And so I am stuck down in Toledo, Washington, and my sponsor says, "Yeah, the meeting is in Fremont." Yeah, get up here. So I'm 5 days a week going to an IOP in Tukwila, and then Saturday morning at 8:00 there's a meeting in Fremont, and so I'm driving 120 miles each way 6 days a week. Wow. I was changing my oil every month for quite a while, and but I was doing what I was told, it wasn't very long. I ran into another friend who said, if you need a place, I'm not going to be at my place in near Bremerton for a few months. You could just move in here and house it for me. And so I did. I ended up moving out away from the folks, because you know what? It doesn't make any difference how old you are. Your parents are there. You're 15, right? And all the rules apply. It's like you're supposed to do the kitchen and the garbage and all this stuff. Do you not remember how all this works? Yeah. So I moved out by myself, and I got sober alone, except for the meetings and everything. But I didn't have any family around me most nights, and I had Christmas alone that year, and I had New Year's alone that year, and I watched the Seahawks lose the Super Bowl by myself, and I didn't drink, and I'm like, okay, things are going pretty well, and I'm putting a lot of miles on the truck, and um, um, I kind of have to sort of stop once in a while and look back and um, see that there's been a lot of work and effort put into breaking of my own habits of drinking. Right? It wasn't the alcohol that I needed to stop, because I got physically sober fairly quickly, but it was the whole pattern of me living my days through alcohol and workahol and all that stuff to do everything, and I had to learn a whole different way of living. So sometimes I ask myself, would you do it all over again? And I would hope there would be an easier path, but for me there wasn't. It was just show up and do stuff, all the time. And I'm very grateful to be here. I am an alcoholic. I'm not a grateful alcoholic, because I would wish this on anybody, but I'm very, very grateful for what's happened to me since I've become sober. I've been able to take some of the skills that I've developed over the years in um, media production and everything, and help Intergroup out. And I'm very, very grateful to have that opportunity to be of service that way. I'm able to go to my hometown now, and during the part where I was getting sober down there, I ran into a lot of people. What are you doing down here? I'm getting divorced. Oh yeah, well, whatever. Good to see you again. Come over and have dinner. And just people that I was kind of with in high school who are now some of my very good friends, and I have a completely different relationship with going down there, and love for my community and those folks. My mom had commented, in the first week that I was living at home again, she says, "You've talked to me more this week than you have in the last 23 years." And so I try to get down there now as often as I can, at least once every other week, more if they need something. And I have the ability to help them out as they get older. When my dad retired, he was an old aircraft mechanic forever, and he decided the moment he retired he wanted nothing to do with anything that went in the air. After spending 10 years at the FAA, decided to become a boat builder. So he builds sailboats, and I've got to help him with stuff as he gets older and needs some help with some things. I've actually built a much better relationship with him than I have, and my parents seem grateful that I'm able to help them. I just love being sober enough to go down there and help them. Sober enough to help all kinds of people in my life. So, with that, I just kind of want to read something and talk about it. I have been fascinated over time. I've been fascinated over time with the Serenity Prayer, and trying to figure out in my life what are my responsibilities to change, and what do I have to let go. And I ended up getting back together with my wife, and it kind of pains me to say that being sober didn't solve all of the problems, but it was something that I could do to change, and it's given me some perspective on some things that where I can see problems in what I was doing that were as a result of my drinking, and then other things that I can't not change, and don't have the right to change, and are kind of probably none of my business to change. And so, I do, I learn more and more about all of this all the time. And so, I like the daily reflections for September 23rd, which says, Bill W., said to me gently and simply, "Do you think you are one of us?" During my drinking life, I was convinced that I was an exception. I thought I was beyond the petty requirements and had a right to be excused. I never realized the dark counterbalance of my attitude was a constant feeling that I did not belong. At first in AA, I identified with others only as an alcoholic. What a wonderful awakening for me it has been to realize that if all human beings were doing the best they could, then so was I. Of all the pains and confusions and joys they feel are not exceptional, but a part of my life just as much as anybody's. And I keep this in my big book, and look at it once in a while, because it tells me that two things, I guess. One is, people I meet are probably doing the best that they can, no matter what. And two, it's okay for me to tell myself that I'm probably doing the best I can. I don't have to be the absolute perfectionist with everything, that I've strived to be, that sort of got me into trouble to begin with. So, with that, I'll just wrap up and say that I am grateful. I am an alcoholic. I may not be a grateful alcoholic, because I don't really quite get that whole thing, but I'm doing the best I can. I know you guys are all doing the best you can, and I appreciate the opportunity to say hello to everybody tonight. Hello, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to Lee and to Rachel. Next week, our speaker will be Marty B.